Okay. Next, we're going to do Annalisa's portraiture project. So let's go take a look at the statement. Okay. So we've got a series of that you took of your mother, a very willing subject. Yeah, yeah, that's something I like about this assignment too. Is I think it's perfect for you know working with somebody that you're close to. I think that there's that there's something that comes through when the photographer truly knows their subject, truly has a personal relationship with their subject. That intimacy somehow comes through. So let me go ahead and start with this one. First off, this is a really nice composition and a nice facial expression. That I like that she's kind of relaxed. She's not looking at the camera, which is automatically kind of a little bit more natural. Where when people are looking at the camera, they're usually posing, making some kind of a face or whatever. And here, you know, perhaps she is aware that you're there, but she could just as easily be completely oblivious to your being there because she looks so lost in thought. So, really, really nice. Facial expression and pose for that. I also like the inclusion of the flowers here. That's really nice. I do think there's a couple things that I think could be improved on this one, and something that I'll point out first off is if there's only one part of the photograph that's going to be in focus when you do a picture of a person, it needs to be the eyes. The eyes need to be the sharpest focus in the whole picture. And I think what I'm seeing right now is sharper focus on the flower or maybe parts of the hair, things that are a tiny bit closer to us. I don't know if you were using your manual or autofocus. It's difficult to do, and it's difficult to know if you got it in focus. Um, One of the tricks that you can do is when you take the shot, before you change to go do something else, zoom in on the screen on the back of your camera as far as you can and look at the eyes. If you can see the eyelashes, you're good to go. If the eyelashes aren't sharp, you need to take another picture. So that's one of the first things that my eye went to. Um, it's tricky on uh, a day where there's so much light coming through. It's very strong light. Even though you're in the shade, it's still casting some really harsh highlights here. And the sky's a little bit blown out. It's really hard to meter for both. And this is the kind of thing that I could see you doing some editing, just to I'd like for her to stand out just a little bit more. um, I think you could probably get a little closer, um, and that would reduce the amount of background. She might have to hold the flowers up a little bit higher, but we wouldn't know if, even if her hand was in an awkward position, we wouldn't know if we couldn't see it. um, just because I think the background's still a little bit distracting, but it's only because the light is just so strong. And so I think that also to kind of compensate for these blowout areas here and here, I think it would be good to enhance the highlights along here where you've already got a highlight. Bring it out a little more. Bring this out just a little bit more. You could do this with a brush. You could do it with Dodge and Burn. And then conversely, one of the things that the hardest things to do when you're trying to photograph something dark on a bright day like this, whoops, sorry, you're just almost guaranteed to have difficulty with your exposure because the camera doesn't know, am I exposing for the the sky, or am I exposing for the subject? And in order for it to not look any more blown out than it is, it kind of came at the cost of detail down in here. This generally what we're looking for on dark areas is not flat. In other words, this almost looks like it's cut out of a piece of construction paper. There's no volume, there's no detail. Now the beauty of shooting in RAW is that that information is in there. You can select that area out, isolate it from the rest of the picture, and adjust the lights and the darks so that you bring out a little bit of that detail. Something you can't do if you're not shooting in RAW. And I'd love to maybe see this just brightened up a little bit too. It's kind of nice to have this bit of color. One other thing I'm just going to throw out there, and it's the kind of thing I just don't think you can know until until kind of come back to the studio and start looking at your stuff. But what you have your subject wear is important as well. Especially in terms of value and color. And so you've kind of set yourself up for a really difficult exposure situation here because she's wearing this black coat. I think if she was wearing a light colored, sweater or jacket, maybe even something kind of in the value of these flowers right here, that it would be a better composition, and it would lighten her up a little bit too. I was commenting on Eli's that his little girl was wearing a gray sweater, and it was kind of giving her face kind of an ashy look, and same thing's kind of happening here. I think that you've got a really dark or really neutral, clothing on. It's going to affect the overall composition as well as the appearance of the face. One last thing. It could be that her eyes were in focus when you took the picture, but you don't ever want to go slower than a 60th. Even if you were using a tripod for this, it's not likely that your subject, if your subject's a human, can sit still enough to not have a little bit of motion blur. The trick here would be you've got so much light. I can see why you're using kind of the low ISO, but there's nothing wrong with going up to 2. Wait a minute. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think okay, I think I got a little confused. Yeah, yeah. You should go up a little bit on the ISO to buy yourself a faster shutter speed. Even if it's just you click it up to 200, that should compensate right here. So that's my suggestion on that one. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a minute. Okay, and I think that it's working very, very nice in black and white. There are a couple problems with this one. It's a great composition. It's a great portrait. Um, but the first thing my eye goes to is this big black spot here and black spot here. I know it's shadows, but it almost looks like something's been smudged on her face. It almost looks like it's already there. And I know that that's really tricky to do. Maybe one thing you could have done, and this would just take experimenting. I'm not exactly sure, but well, one thing you could do is you could force your flash. Go ahead and tell your camera you want the flash to go off, even though it's not necessary. And so sometimes when you're shooting in the shade on a bright day, forcing your flash is exactly what you need to do. And another thing might be actually having her holding in her lap a reflective, a big white board or a big reflective surface. And that can kind of get some soft light to indirect light to bounce off of that and soften some of these shadows. So, what's happening is, um, you've got these really harsh shadows, and I'm not going to say that that's necessarily a bad thing if that's what you intend, but I kind of don't think that was your intent. But you could do something really, really expressive with these, like intentionally taking a picture of the shadows on somebody's face to make them look like their face is painted or something. But from what I read in your statement, and also just from the character that is coming through in this one, I don't think something dramatic like that was your intent. So how to fix that? Get some indirect light. Use your force flash. Wait until the light circumstances change. You're really kind of setting yourself up for difficulty when you've got the really bright light and then really dark subject. The coat looks better in this one. I still think that there's probably some detail down in here that you could bring out. It wouldn't hurt to kind of lighten up under her jawline just a little bit, bring out a little bit more highlight in the hair. Now that said, I think other than that, this is an excellent, composition and an excellent, um, setup. I love the profile. I love the out of focus background. I love this kind of diagonal line right here that separates the two sides of the image. So it's like, it's almost there, but this is one of those things that you might not notice until you get back in the studio, and the more you use your camera, the more readily you're going to notice when you're shooting, oh, this is something that could happen. And then, of course, again, I think if she was wearing a light colored sweater, this would have made a huge difference. And it might have even made the dark shadows not so bad because, if she's wearing black, well, it's not going to be reflecting any light up off of her clothing. If anything, it's just going to be taking light away. So something to think about. Okay. Now this one's really nice. I think so far this is your best composition. Um, you can go in and do some more editing on this one because we're getting a little bit lost here. Of course, you've got this on a black slide background too. So, that's kind of part of it where I can't really tell where the frame ends, but I assume it's over here somewhere, and it would be good, even if it's not much, even if we can just get a little hint of the edge of her hair, bring out some of the highlights in here so that we actually get the volume and, the shape of her shoulder and the fact that this is, curved over her shoulder, closer to us. Now, the picture itself is really, really nice. I would love to see a little tiny bit more of the face and maybe a little less of the window, just because as it is right now, the window kind of overpowers the face. Now, it's because of two things. One, it's really big, and two, it's the lightest, brightest thing on there. Okay, so since you've got the shadows and just really, really subtle highlights on the face, um, one thing you could do is actually bracket and take the background from one of your darker exposures and combine that, with this one to kind of, get the to kind of get the darker, more neutral background area. I like what's happening here, here, and here. These three panes, really, really interesting stuff. It's this one right here that's causing a bit of a disconnect. And I think if you maybe just moved in a tiny bit closer, maybe even asked her to rotate her face just a couple degrees towards you, um, just so that it's a little bit bigger, taking up a little bit more of the frame. I think that a really lovely, expression, kind of a candid moment. And I really like the fact that you're not having her look at the camera for these. That these really seem to be you're capturing somebody in their own environment, doing whatever it is they do. So I really, really like that. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay, this one is better yet. Okay, so I think so far this is your strongest one. You kind of a similar thing. I think that you could bring out a little bit of highlight over in here to help her hold her own against this really bright and really busy window here. So it's just kind of a matter of right now, the first thing my eye goes to is this. The second thing I look at is her face. You want that to be reversed. And it's really a neat pattern. It's really neat to have her um, and here's another thing that I might suggest also is since, similar situation to the pictures you took outside, you could possibly force your flash on this. I don't know, maybe it wouldn't work. Maybe a better thing to do would be just to get another light source, an artificial light source, and have it coming from coming to kind of just illuminate this part of her just a little bit, and I think that you could do that. This window is so powerful that I think you could probably cut it off right here. And then that would so that she wouldn't be fighting with it quite so much. Either getting closer or perhaps turning your camera so that it is a vertical orientation. Then that way that might give us a little bit more of her, a little bit less of this. But again, just like with the others, the the candidness of it is just really, really nice. Okay, another very candid picture. I'm thinking this one you need to do a little work on your white balance. This one looks a little greenish, and and again, I think that there's she's getting lost in the shadows here. We need to pull her out somehow. I would recommend either including all of the hand or hands or none. And just with like most of the others, I think it would be good to get in just a little bit closer. Um, Let the face take up more of the space. So you're doing a really, really nice job with the the kind of natural poses and the candid quality and capturing. But I think on these it's a little bit hit or miss with your composition. And when you're working with such dark areas, you could have definitely gone up to 400, 800 on this, and then you wouldn't have to have this super, super slow shutter speed in which really not much of anything is in focus. So this one probably doesn't have, there's something this one doesn't have that the other ones do. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay, and this is a lovely black and white. This is a good composition. I think it's a little out of focus. So your shutter speed is 3.2. This would be a circumstance where you would want to go up 400, probably even 1,000, because there's no way you're going to get a clean line right here. The couple of things I'll point out, just, you've got to watch those really, really bright things contrasting against the really, really dark things. This is probably not a good thing to have. And you could probably just move yourself a little bit so that you can't see it, so that her head is kind of blocking it. Same thing as before. I'd love to see a little bit more detail in here, and bringing out a little bit of highlight along the edge of the face. This part in here I wouldn't touch. I think this looks great. But I would say all of these just really, really nice as far as what you're trying to do. I think most of the your ideas and what you're trying to convey is really, really working. I think in this particular case, it's mostly technical issues that are taking nice photographs, but preventing them from being fantastic. So that's kind of my thinking on that. Let's go on to the last page, and let's take a look at this, and then we'll go on to the next one.